Hi, I'm Erica Lukes, and I am here with the incomparable Stephen Bassett. Stephen is a role model. He has more energy and more tenacity than anybody in this field. So if you don't know who Stephen is, please take some time and go to his fantastic website. Watch all of the things that he's done with the Citizens Hearing on Disclosure. He is fantastic, and I want him to tell you a little bit about some of the major accomplishments that this man has made.
Essentially, the Paradigm Research Group is a political advocacy group that's been pursuing the resolution of this issue by political means. Because it's not about lights in the sky anymore, it's about lies on the ground. We know there's an extraterrestrial presence. It's been proven, plenty of research. The government simply doesn't want to admit it. And as a result, we have this truth vacuum, which is becoming very expensive and costly. And it's undermining trust in government and so forth. And the world is kind of in a standstill. It's not going anywhere. It's now just stewing in its own juice, right?
Yes,
literally,
absolutely.
You can see it. So this is not going to get resolved until the governments of the world acknowledge the truth of this matter, the basic truth. There's an extraterrestrial presence. Probably it'll be President Obama or a U.S. president, followed by the rest of the world leaders. So since 1996, PRG has been doing whatever it can to sort of try to move the political process forward. It's very slow. But in the last 2-3 years, it picked up. We may be approaching the end of this political advocacy story. Most, of the great movements and advocacy efforts took time. 50, 60, 70, 80 years, whatever. And then they get toward the end and whoosh, it gets done, okay? Well, we may be there. PRG was able to get the White House to actually put its position in writing back in October of 2011. This had never happened before. So, and their position on this issue, which is on their website right now, whitehouse.gov, is that there's no evidence for any of this and no evidence the government's hidden anything, and nobody believes any of that.
Right, no, absolutely.
But it's in writing, and therefore it creates a situation where you can create a very significant kind of electromagnetic connection here between the lie that the government has stated and what the press knows. And if you build up the charges on both plates, they're discharged. So we worked on that for about a year. And then we held a citizen hearing on disclosure, which was a mock congressional hearing to highlight the witnesses and create a lot of media coverage. So we brought in 42 witnesses, 10 countries. They testified for 5 days, 30 hours, and we filmed it all in front of 6 former members of Congress. Okay.
And I have to tell you, I watched that over and over again.
Over and over?
I'm a little obsessive.
It is 30 hours,
I know. Well, I've got a lot of free time. But it really, it's so powerful and moving to me. And, when you listen to everybody, you just, how can you think that there's anything other than the fact of being visited?
And when you see it in the form of a hearing and it's all going very well, and the former members of Congress who are, they have a lot of tenure. They weren't, they were substantial members. When you see how they're reacting, you realize, well, there's no reason we shouldn't be having a real hearing. But the Congress has not had one. They haven't had one since '68 because they know that a hearing that comprehensive would probably end the truth embargo. And so whatever efforts are made, somehow, somewhere, someone blocks it, okay? So what we're trying to do is get around the block. So we did the citizen hearing, we filmed it. And then in November the 5th of last year, 2014, we shipped the whole record to all the members of Congress. So there's 538 sets up there in the hill, in drawers and bookshelves. And then with that as the opening, we did a social media campaign. We generated 1.5 million social media messages, #disclosure, to the Congress, spread all over the Congress, to let them know that we're coming. And that was good. And then I arrived in late November, and we started approaching the offices in January. And since then, right after I had faxed some important stuff to the Congress, Obama schedules himself on Jimmy Kimmel, comes on, answers an extraterrestrial question, the exact same one that Clinton had been asked in April of last year, or April of 2014. And then that generated a roll call article, which was a very important newspaper on the Hill, with everything in it, all the links, the videos, everything.
That's fantastic.
And it's still up. It'll stay up indefinitely. And then that generated responses from the offices I've been approaching. And they said, okay, let's meet. Okay, you know how these things snowball, right? Not too long after I started these meetings is when Obama went on the air. He went on the Jimmy Kimmel show. It was Podesta that did a tweet after I did those faxes to the key committees. He puts this tweet out after leaving, just as he left the job as the advisor to the president, that his biggest regret in that previous year, 2014, was not getting the UFO files released. Actually, he said not getting #disclosure of the UFO files released, which is the same hashtag we were using on the social media campaign. This is a message, basically, yeah, I know what's going on. And also, it gets him on record a little bit because they see what's coming. So we get the tweet. That generated the roll call article. The roll call article generates the responses from the congressional offices. And then Obama goes on Kimmel, answers an extraterrestrial question. That then generates a Mother Jones magazine article, which is a very significant progressive magazine. And that article's got everything in it, right? All the links, everything. And that's still up. The situation now is that we've got two things going at the same time. This is complicated. It's a little complicated, but there is a well-announced congressional hearing initiative underway. Meetings are being held. I'm not getting any grief from anybody, all right? It's still a slow process, very slow process. I need to get more meetings, but I've been traveling and doing lectures and stuff. And but one of the key areas of testimony in the citizen hearing on disclosure, the mock congressional hearing, happened to involve the Rockefeller Initiative. And the Rockefeller Initiative involves the Clintons and the Clinton team. It took place 22 years ago, and none of these people on this team have ever acknowledged it. In other words, they just, like Bill would just rather not talk about any of his, how would you say, girlfriends? We'd just rather not talk about that. Until one day he was forced to talk about that. It's because the Clintons have enormous political ambition, and they do whatever it takes to succeed. Until eventually it blows up in their face. Okay, so the Rockefeller Initiative is exactly like that, though it's much more important than President Clinton's social life. And they didn't talk about it because while they engaged it for 3 years, they felt if they talked about it, it could hurt Hillary Clinton's prospects. Well, the trouble is all the documents are on the net. They've been up the net for like 14 years. The press has been told about this repeatedly. They haven't covered it because that's part of the embargo. So the whole thing is just ready to go, all right? At some point, somebody in the press is going to say, hey, I'm going to ask these questions. And because of everything that's happened, the Clinton appearance on Kimmel in April of last year, and then Podesta's tweet, which was pretty interesting, and then, of course, Obama on Kimmel. The meetings are underway, the big articles. They pretty much know that the press is coming at them. It's only a matter of time. Plus, I inadvertently, in the latest tweet campaign we just put out, which went out to 400 of the top political media in the country. Well, mostly in Washington. Editors, reporters, program producers, the shows, all the shows, everything. With all kinds of links to the information about that, just to kind of heat up the pot. I inadvertently included in those 400 all 18 of the current and potential Republican candidates. So to just let them know about the Rockefeller Initiative. Now, what's interesting about that is that the Rockefeller Initiative was brought up by me back in the 2007 campaign of Hillary Clinton. It was on Fox News, but there was no follow-up. There were no questions asked. She was running against John McCain, ultimately. John McCain is a pretty basic guy and an honorable man, by and large. And he wasn't going to pick up on it, even if he'd been told to. And so she went through the whole campaign and never had to deal with it. Now she's running again. Only this time, she's not up against John McCain. She's up against what will ultimately be 18 candidates in the Republican Party who are all over the map, all right?
Yep.
All over the map. And any one of them could decide, oh, I'm just going to pound her over this. and tinfoil hatter, as they say, and just show that she's a UFO person and she dealt with all this stuff back then and she's not worthy of being president. And that's boom. Because the moment one of those candidates mentions it, the press have complete license to go to her and say, what's this about?
Right. So she must be scared. I mean, they've got to be doing some damage control or deep, some maneuvers.
Well, they're doing something. And Clinton's appearance, Podesta's tweet, Obama's appearance, because Obama's now part of the Clinton team, all right, in case you hadn't noticed, because he hired all the Clinton people in his administration, right, including Hillary Clinton. And of course, he's the head of the Democratic Party. So, no, they're now together. So the Rockefeller Initiative is going to impact Barack Obama just as much as it's going to impact the Clinton team. So they've already been asked one question, the first question in 22 years. That came to the campaign from A.J. Vicenza, Mother Jones. And he queried the campaign about the Rockefeller Initiative. Her spokesperson, Nick Merle, came immediately back, probably didn't check with Hillary, and blew it off. He said, our campaign has a strict policy of not commenting on anything extraterrestrial. But the truth is out there. This is a blow-off, okay? Now, that's a problem because he's going to have to deal with that later. But that shows you they're not ready. They're not ready yet. And then Podesta was contacted by roll call. He didn't respond. Okay, but that's telling them the jig is up. So, okay, what are their options? One of their options is for her to deny everything. That would be the Bill Clinton option. That won't go because the documents have been up on the net for 14 years. And the documents show that she was involved in it, deeply involved in it. So that blows up in her face. Can't do that. The second option is to say that, yeah, we did some things, but it's been overblown. It really wasn't that big a deal, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That is something they might try. Unfortunately, in the age of the internet, it's not going to work.
No, you can't. No, you can't get away with anything. That's fantastic.
You've got too many people in the world that can go read the damn documents. Too many, the press can read them. So the idea that they're going to just take that verbatim is not going to fly. She can refuse to answer. Not for national security, I don't think, but just refuse to. That won't fly, obviously. Well, that leaves only one option. Own it. In other words, take responsibility, stand up, own it. This is not something the government does a lot these days, but you own it. Now, what does that mean? It means that she just, yes, absolutely right. We tried to get information. Rockefeller, we had meetings. This took place. We felt that people should know this. But my husband was blocked. He could get no cooperation from the Pentagon.
So what's your gut telling you? I mean, what do you think they'll do?
I don't. There's only one thing they can do. In other words, a way you win a chess game is you put the king in a position, right, where the king cannot make any move without being checked again, and at that point you win. If the king has even one other option, the game continues. This is exactly like that. Now, how do you checkmate a president or a former president? Believe me, it happens, right?
And you're doing it. I'm so.
Well, it's not easy, and you need a lot of luck, but it can happen. But the whole field has been working on this now, and building evidence. And so we have 77 years of 68 years of effort, research, activism, media that has built up this sort of massive reality, matrix about this issue. And that is what's pressing on them right now, not just the latest maneuvers of PRG, right? If I just come out of nowhere and there was no UFO ET movement of any kind, it would be easy to blow that off. That's exactly what happened with the social issues that President Clinton. Woman turns up, all you got to do is, take her down,
yep.
Nothing else. Not now, not this time. So the moment she does that, for the first time since 1947, the press now have what is free license. In other words, no editor is going to get in trouble with a publisher. No reporter is going to get in trouble with an editor for saying, okay, what about this? What about that? And actually trying to get to the bottom of it. And that's it. When I say that they all have a license, all of them have a license. And once they grasp how big the story is, it goes from being a license to literally a frenzy. It becomes unbelievably intense, which we saw with the case of her husband. There is irony here, very profound irony here. All right, Her husband went through pretty much exactly what she's about to go through, but over a very negative thing that wasn't going to please anybody, and it wasn't going to accomplish much other than make his life tough. She is going to go through exactly the same thing, but about an issue of massive importance that, if it moves forward, will change the world. And I'm hoping that John Podesta, being the brightest guy, right, he's the genius in their team, will say to her at one point, you own this, you get out there, you'll get some jokes initially, you'll get some snipes from the Republicans, but once the press start digging and getting into questions, and the public realizes what's going on, the public is going to get very much behind you. You're going to go from being the woman that hides her email files to the great truth teller, and you'll get this out. You'll probably get grandfathered into legacy, even though Obama will be the one to make the announcement, and you'll still get to be president in 2017.
It's been so great.
That is what I'm hoping he'll eventually conclude. So that's my call. I mean, I think we're about to checkmate the Hillary Clinton campaign on this one particular issue, forcing a press engagement. It's not the only press engagement that could trigger this. I mean, there are others, but we don't have the leverage.